สถานีวิทยุสรานรม AM1575 การทูตเพื่อประชาชน
เพื่อไทยก้าวไกลทันโลก
You are now listening to News and Views with me, Venus Asawapum. Today I have quite a few top stories from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for you, and it's almost like a wrapping up of all the hard work we've done all over for the whole year. The first is the European Union delegation pays a courtesy call on the Minister of Foreign Affairs. On December 2, 2015, Ambassador of the European Union or the EU to Thailand led the European Union ambassadors and chargé d'affaires to pay a joint courtesy call on His Excellency Mr. Don Paramat Vinay, Minister of Foreign Affairs. The courtesy call was held in an open and constructive atmosphere, where both sides agree that the mutually beneficial relationship between Thailand and the EU will continue to flourish through positive and continuous dialogue. The foreign minister underscored the close and cordial ties between both sides and Thailand's active role in supporting the EU in many international cooperation frameworks. Other issues discussed included freedom of speech and assembly, participatory process of constitution drafting, lèse-majesté law, refugee, and consular assistance to the EU citizens in Thailand. The EU side commended Thailand for organizing the second special meeting on irregular migration in the Indian Ocean and the Thai government's concentrated efforts to address IUU fishing. The delegation also expressed interest in participating in the East Asian Summit, or the EAS, and looked forward to Thailand's role as ASEAN-EU coordinator in elevating the relations between both sides. And the meeting went on for 2.5 hours, actually, so all the topics have been covered extensively. Also, on the opening session of the second special meeting on irregular migration in the Indian Ocean, on the 4th December 2015, His Excellency Mr. Don Paramat Vinay, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, opened the second special meeting on irregular migration in the Indian Ocean at Anantara Siam Hotel, Bangkok. This meeting is part of the Royal Thai government's continued efforts and commitment to address the problem of irregular migration in the Indian Ocean. It's good news actually that the issue has been looked at continuously. The senior representatives from Australia, Bangladesh, Canada, China, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, Laos, PDR, Malaysia, Myanmar, New Zealand, the Philippines, Singapore, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, United States of America, Vietnam, ASEAN Secretariat, European Union, and Thailand, as well as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or the UNHCR, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, and the International Organization for Migration, or IOM, attended as participants. So everyone around the world, including the international organizations, have given this special meeting on irregular migration in the Indian Ocean importance. And a number of ambassadors and chargé d'affaires based in Bangkok also observed the meeting. In his opening statement, the Minister of Foreign Affairs lauded affected countries and the region for undertaking vigorous measures to address the realities of irregular migration, as well as reaffirmed Thailand's commitment to prevent and suppress the smuggling and trafficking of migrants, while also taking into account the humanitarian concerns of migrants. The minister also states that the issue should not be regarded as merely a phenomenon, but rather an issue involving the lives of individuals. Reiterating the complexity of the issue, Minister Dawn said all countries must work together on the basis of international burden sharing to come up with a systematic and holistic approach to solve this issue. It's not someone's problem, it's everyone's problem. While no sighting of irregular migrants have been found so far since June, the possible resumption of irregular maritime movements after the monsoon remains a serious concern. Thus, the meeting will serve as a preemptive platform to come up with tangible and sustainable measures, bearing in mind the importance of prevention and protection. I also have another top stories on the progress on combating human trafficking in Thailand, but let's save that for the second half. I'd like to bring your attention to an article I found from independent.co.uk. And with the bombing in Syria underway, receiving support from many, one man begged to differ, and that man is Nicholas Henin, the man who was held captive by ISIS for 10 months. He says that they can be defeated by the winner of this war will not be the party that has the newest, the most expensive, or the most sophisticated weaponry, but the party that manages to win over people. I thought it's a new way to look at what's going on in the world, and I'd like to share, what I found with my listeners here. He's a French journalist who was held hostage by ISIS for 10 months and has spoken out against airstrikes in Syria, saying they represent a trap for Britain and other members of the international community. Speaking in an interview with the Syria campaign, Nicholas Henin put forward his strategy for combating the militant group, a no-fly zone in opposition-held areas of Syria. Mr. Henin has previously spoken about how he was held for 7 months in Syria itself, and how British national Mohammed Mwazi, known as Jihadi John, was among the jailers who subjected him to physical and psychological torture. Strikes on ISIS are a trap, he said. The winner of this war will not be the party that has the newest, the most expensive, or the most sophisticated weaponry, but the party that manages to win over the people on its side. As an example of how international community had responded well, he described the recent escalation of the refugee crisis, the corresponding offers from Europe of homes to fleeing Muslims, as a blow to ISIS. He said, hundreds of thousands of refugees fleeing this Muslim land that is like a dream for ISIS, that is supposed to be their Israel, and fleeing that land to go to the land of the unbelievers. This is why they probably tried to manipulate the public during the Paris attacks, he said, to make us close our borders, and maybe even more importantly, close our minds. Coalition bombing was not hurting the militants, Mr. Henin said in the interview before British MPs voted in favor of the airstrikes in Syria, but rather pushing people into the hands of ISIS. What we have to do, and this is really key, we have to engage the local people. As soon as the people have hope for a political solution, the Islamic State will just collapse. There will be a very easy way to make ISIS lose ground at a high speed. The international community must decide all regions held by Syrian opposition are no-fly zones. No-fly zones for everybody. Not the coalition, not the Russians, not the regime, no one. Nobody. Providing security for people there would be devastating for ISIS. That's what the international community should focus on. He added, why are we making so many mistakes? Why are people so misunderstanding ISIS vision? We're just fueling our enemies and fueling the misery and disaster for the local people. Mr. Henin is a freelance journalist who has worked in Iraq and Syria for most of his career. He was held by ISIS in an underground cell alongside other hostages, including the American journalist James Foley, who was later executed. Welcome back to News and Views, and let's get on with the progress on combating human trafficking in Thailand. Following a number of news reports in the media outlets concerning the alleged labor abuse and exploitative practices in several poultry processing factories in Thailand, it must be noted that the report omits significant progress made by the Royal Thai government in addressing and tackling the issue of migration and labor exploitation. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs reaffirmed that Thailand values the potential contribution of migrants to economic development of our country and attaches great importance to the management of overseas employment as well as the basic rights of migrant workers. Meanwhile, we are fully aware that these migrant workers are vulnerable to exploitation and human trafficking. Thus, the Royal Thai government is strongly committed to tackling these problems through rights-based and transparent policies. The utmost aim is not only to put an end to labor exploitation and human trafficking, but also to ensure migrant workers of their rights, decent working environment, work safety, social protection, and welfare. Thailand's strategy to combat labor exploitation and human trafficking is structured around the 5 P's framework, namely policy, prosecution, protection, prevention, and partnership. On policy implementation, the Royal Thai government has translated Zero Tolerance Policy Directive to real changes with emphasis on better legislative frameworks, eliminating legal loopholes, and greater coordination among concerned agencies. Significantly, amendments to Anti-Human Trafficking Act 2015 empowered authorities to immediately shut down workplaces or suspend operating licenses of factories where evidences of trafficking are found. And on prosecution, the government focuses on strong law enforcement and increasing efficiency in the criminal justice system. As of October 2015, a total number of 212 human trafficking cases are being investigated, with 450 suspects having been arrested and charged, and 702 trafficking victims have been identified. A special human trafficking unit within the criminal court has been set up, and since then 16 cases have been submitted with 4 judgments rendered in less than 4 months. In addition, the Prime Minister has appointed an ad hoc committee to address current changes in judicial proceedings with regard to human trafficking. The committee comprises senior judges, prosecutors, police officers, permanent secretaries of relevant ministries, the Office of National Anti-Corruption Commission, as well as the Director General of Department of Fisheries and DSI. More importantly, the regulation of the Office of the Prime Minister on measures to prevent public officials' involvement in human trafficking also ensures that involvement and ignorance by public officials to labor abuses and trafficking will not be tolerated. As a result, actions taken against government officials involved in human trafficking has significantly increased. In total, there are 25 officials under investigation, including 5 military officers, 5 police officers, and 7 local politicians, among others. On protection, Thailand strongly adheres to Labor Relations Act of 1975 and the Labor Protection Act of 1998, which provide that all migrant workers are entitled to equal protection. Of important note is the government's focus on accessibility to effective complaint mechanism. So, 1300 hotline has continued to provide 24-hour services with interpreters in 7 languages, with over 100 new interpreters being trained to ensure adequate assistance. The government also strengthened its capacity for labor inspection and developing a capacity-building programs for migrant workers in cooperation with the International Labour Organization or the ILO. In addition, victim identification process has been improved through the use of better interview questionnaire and clearer guidelines for implementation. On prevention, the government has attached great emphasis on reducing vulnerability to labor trafficking by encouraging employment of migrant workers through the MOUs with Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia, while improving migrant workers' rights and legal status through systematic registration. During the permissible registration period from June until October 2014, over 1.6 million migrant workers and their dependents from Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia have legally registered, allowing them to enjoy legal protection as well as social and healthcare benefits akin to domestic workers. Labor inspection has also played a key role in implementing labor migration policies to minimize the risk of trafficking. And lastly, on partnership, Thailand has enhanced its cooperation with all stakeholders, including our neighboring countries, international organizations such as ILO and IOM, NGOs, and private sectors to promote better working conditions for migrants. Internally, all relevant public agencies have signed MOUs to enhance efficiency on trafficking in person cases, to enhance officers' capability in victim identification process, and to promote awareness and knowledge in high-risk provinces. And internationally, Thailand continues to work closely together with all stakeholders, both on bilateral levels, such as MOUs on anti-trafficking in person with Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Malaysia, and within multilateral frameworks, such as the ASEAN Convention on Trafficking in Persons and the Bali Process, which Thailand is looking to host in February next year. Thailand remains fully committed to solving the issues of migration and the common challenges that come with it. We will continue to support the notion of shared responsibility and focus on law enforcement to ensure that labor rights are protected and equal access and transparency guaranteed for all workers. That's it for today. I can't believe that soon it will be the end of the year. I'm doing a lucky draw at the moment, and the price, it's estimated value of 1,199 baht. I will let you know what it is towards the end of the year. But if you're curious or if you would like to enter into the lucky draw, you can write an email or a postcard to Venus at Sawapum at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, 443 Rama 6 Road, Ratchathewi, Bangkok 10400, and your name will be entered into the lucky draw. And thank you for tuning into News and Views. Have a very pleasant evening, and I'll see you again next Monday. สวัสดีค่ะ